It's Dandadan, the show where we talk about Dandadan, a manga about the Dandadans. This week's chapter was a game changer for this series. We saw both Ren and Koki lose their powers while we are introduced to either a new yokai or a yokai user. This may be one of the most important chapters in recent memory for Dandadan because we know exactly who this is. Let's lock in. We pick up from chapter 223, in which both Ren and Koki are caught. Koki has been given an ultimatum to yield or Ren dies. She chose to sacrifice her power for Ren. Pumpkin Butt does as he promised and pierces Koki's hand, taking her powers. Now, I didn't think Tatsu would just go ahead and do this. I thought maybe someone would intervene and save the two girls, but actually, I was wrong here. Koki's Lord of the Flies is taken, and it is handed to the Aninra. And so the outcome would play out for Ren much the same. She is released from Vakapa and is given the same ultimatum. Friend or powers, and she better choose fast because it will only take 10 seconds before Koki to drown, which is a probably pretty good motivation. That was very intentional because that means Ren won't have any chance to regain her bearings and come up with some plan to break free and tables the turn. But a nice detail from Ren, which fits her really well, is that she doesn't treat her power as power, or something she wants to keep a hold of, I guess. She has a relationship with Mai, and she hates seeing them suffer, and even more being worried what will happen to her. This reminded me of how both Mai and the Tontadas helped both Ren and Koki respectfully. They weren't just sources of pure power and nothing more. These two yokais actually helped both of them by genuinely supporting them and being there when they needed them the most. So I don't just think that Ren is doing this for Koki. I also think she is doing this because she may be thinking that she wants to protect Mai, and relinquishing her could be the right thing to do here. Ren's reaction is heartbreaking, as if she just lost a very close family member seeing Mai whisk away right before her very eyes. You know, it's tough, but I think this isn't the last time we will be seeing Ren or Koki, obviously, but there is something that keeps me thinking that they'll make it through this. This basically puts them in the position that Okarun is now in. So maybe this is the saga in which Dandadan characters learn how to use ki and spiritual energy to gain strength, basically using their own life force instead of yokai powers to put a stop to this. Because, to me at least, there is no way Koki and Ren especially wouldn't have this happen to them and just sit by the sidelines, right? Here is another shocker for me. Aninra tells the two goons that they can do as they like with Ren and Koki, even suggesting killing them. Vakaba undresses, revealing that, yeah, I guess that is a man, but also what in that chastity belt is that thing? And I guess his method of killing people, as he tries to do with Ren here, is crushing her head between his thighs. You know, if this were like Queen Sensei, I'm not, you know what, I should probably stop talking. Pumpkin Butt, on the other hand, prefers cutting open Koki's stomach. I think this moment showed to me that, while I think these characters have odd but fun designs and are weird AF, I just cannot enjoy these two any longer. They need to die, because to me at least, Ren and Koki are fan favorites, and they're especially some of my favorites. So to hurt these two is a step taken that would almost guarantee their demise, at least in my cold, blackened heart for them. I like to think of these moments as the point of no return. So like once you have a character do something like murder or something similar to it, that's like, say, torture, then it is a rule of thumb that they must die. So to me, this puts the three into a category at the very least right below that. This is when a giant toilet bowl appears and induces, bowel movements. Nature calls, I guess, as Vakapa put it so well. Aninra realizes they must be under attack, and so they all run to the nearest bathroom, where they find quite the diabolical-looking little girl. Aninra shows no mercy and tells Pumpkin Butt? Pumpkin Butt to burn the girl, which once again, we are right below the point of no return for them. I don't think my previous theory that the Aninra would turn a new leaf is as assured as I thought it was. We'll talk more about this later in the video, but these are cold actions made with clarity, or at least that is what it seems like thus far. Plus, this little girl, something's up about her. My guess is that she may be a yokai herself and not just a yokai user. The reason is because of her face. It just doesn't look human. Plus, her ability at least seems to involve inducing bowel movements in individuals she targets by summoning a gigantic toilet, which is highly useful. Because that is, well, if you think about it, it's a kind of torture, I guess, so you can't really fight, especially when your enemy is inducing a, like dysentery, Oregon Trail style. Like, I don't know what I'm trying to say here. Plus, another aspect of this little girl is just kind of her posturing right now. After being engulfed in flames, she is untouched, as her hands are just in her pocket, like, yeah, look at me, I'm Orange Cassidy here. To me, that is a sign of overwhelming power and confidence, which makes me think that, once again, this is not a little girl, but a yokai itself. My wildest theory, however, is that this is the king of the pirates. Okay, so here is my Hail Mary big theory coming from this chapter. I think every character is going to lose their powers and be forced to learn ki. By the end of this saga, we will see a great war between humans using life force as their source of power against the very yokai which originally gave them power. And by doing so, you set up this kind of, well, let me put it this way. Like, you know how in Persona games a big theme is facing yourself, and so much of the game's bosses are literally just fighting yourself in the most ugly form possible? What if we have this like space war between Serpo, Dum-Da-Dums, and Jeremy, and Jeremy is in control of all these yokai powers, which forces the Dum-Da-Dums to do what Okarun is doing by harnessing and learning how to grow their ki, and then eventually facing themselves, well, facing their respective yokai. It's a pretty wild theory, and I'm absolutely wrong, I already know that much, but I think it would be cool because each character will get their own weapons to use throughout. Maybe Ren gets an AK-47. Koki gets Tira's Soul Edge. This could also be a reason why Turbo Granny returned as well, because, I mean, think about it. She of all yokai would likely know how to supercharge the kids to make them ready and beyond reliant on yokai abilities. We don't even have to bring up Seiko. That one's pretty obvious too. They combined probably know all sorts of methods and ways to get these kids to be more powerful, and maybe that is through weapons, because as we see with Okarun, he can hold his own quite well even after losing his yokai. I also think this freshens things up a bit more in the story as well. It just makes it more than just another Dandadan saga where yokai reign supreme. Now they have to train and face adversity. It also means we can explore the lore of Dandadan through weapons instead of just yokai. So with that, there is a lot more culture to draw from and try to analyze to figure out even more stuff. Which, by the way, we are about to do, because we're going to head back on over to talk about that yokai. Because I've saved the best for last. I did a little bit of research on my own to try and figure out what yokai induces bowel movements and looks like this. And there were a couple. Some of them were quite grotesque, but I used a lot of these context clues to draw what I think may be the right conclusion here. It induces bowel movements in the three goons. It also summons a large toilet, and they find the yokai/persons in the bathroom. Other clues that I've considered to a lesser degree is the kappa-like face, the hands in the pocket, and the fashion of the little girl. What I was able to find based on all of these is that it seems like this yokai is possibly Hanako-san. Big shout out to yokai.com. You can find a link on the article in the description or in my Discord server if you are a member there. I'm sure someone's already posted it long before I have, but I also posted it. So as per the yokai.com article, it says the following. The translation of it is Hanako of the toilets, and some of the alternative names are basically Sanbanmei no Hanako-san, Hanako of the third stall, and the habitat is the third stall in the third floor girls' restroom. It is described as a young girl's ghost who haunts elementary school restrooms. She is the subject of schoolyard legends across Japan, and the details of her story vary from place to place and generation to generation, though she is usually said to look like a schoolgirl with bobbed hair wearing a white shirt and a red skirt with suspenders. In most versions of the story, Hanako-san haunts the third stall in the third floor toilet of the schoolhouse. If a student knocks on her stall 3 times and asks if Hanako is there, a scratchy voice will reply, "Yes!" If the student opens the stall door, Hanako-san will pull them down into the toilet and kill them. The precise steps to summon her spirit and the way in which she reacts to being called vary greatly from school to school. Some versions of the legend also include methods to escape from Hanako-san, such as by showing her ghost something that she hates, like a test sheet with a perfect score, a school lunch milk carton, I don't know why you would hate that, and so on. Her origin is said to be this. Hanako-san's legend has roots dating back as far as the 1950s, but it reached the peak of its popularity in the 1980s and 90s. It is said that nearly every school in Japan had its own legend of Torie no Hanako-san at this time. Many schools invented origin stories for their version of Hanako-san. In some versions, she was a schoolgirl who was being chased by a madman, so she ran to her school and hid in the third floor toilet's third stall, but the man found her and murdered her. Because it was a holiday, nobody found her body for several days. In other versions, she was a student during the Pacific War. She was playing hide and seek with her friends and hid in the third floor bathroom when the air raid sirens went off. She was unable to hear the sirens, so she continued to hide in the stall while her classmates were all evacuated to an air raid shelter. She died in a fire when her school was struck by a bomb, but her spirit continues to hide in that bathroom to this day. Other versions claim that she was a victim of constant abuse, either by her parents or by bullies at school, and she committed suicide in that particular bathroom stall, or that a pit latrine at the school was left open by mistake and she fell in and drowned. This to me is very clearly Hanako-san based on all of the descriptions, even right down to the outfit and hair. As well, if we look at the number of stalls, she is waiting by the third stall. So here is my guess as to what may be going down here and how this may play out. Because very obviously, this just is Hanako-san. These three could be forced to give back the yokai abilities they stole because Hanako-san's legend is specifically that she kills people. Though the legend itself is a modern one and thus has many permutations and likely can be reworked in various ways to fit Dandadan's story, which is precisely why Tatsu probably went with Hanako-san. It will allow him to mold her to fit his current need in the plot. I do think, however, that they will not win against Hanako-san simply because it is a ghost, and every video I do, this alarm goes off. Why don't I just put this phone on silent? I don't know. I make the same mistake every week. But anyways, she's a ghost. She shouldn't have a physical body, which is a great match for the Ininra, who has a physical body but can be manipulated to act sort of like a ghost and not have a quote-unquote physical body. That being said, we just don't know what will happen next for sure. My guess is we will see them go down pretty hard, which is some phrasing. But what will happen with Ren and Koki's powers? Is Hanako-san here to save them, or simply is a third party with no alliances? I don't know. But we should head on over to my Discord server to see what people thought about this chapter, because oh my god, this chapter got so many amazing comments. And before we even get into those Discord comments, I should actually tell you guys about the thing that I asked you last week about doing theory videos. I'm still going over that, I'm still reviewing the comments, and I'm still listening to what people have to say. So if you do have a comment on that, please also put it in this week's video in case you missed it or in case you just didn't know. So lots of people immediately brought up that this is toilet-bound Hanako-san, but I loved going through the comments and seeing so many people not know who it was. And you know what? I have an anime recommendation for those who maybe don't know that may help you appreciate Hanako-san further. After all, she is easily one of my favorite yokai of the modern-ish era. There is an anime called Toilet-Bound Hanako-kun that is actually really good. It takes a different approach with it, as Hanako-san is a boy this time. And if you like the humor of Dandadan, you'd probably like this one because it's not really horror, it's just kind of like a slice-of-life comedy with supernatural elements. So yeah, definitely check it out. But to continue, I'm honestly just so impressed every week with October. They are always on point, always in the know. They're always in every single one of my videos every week pretty much and have something interesting to say, whether it is my Dandadan or Chainsaw Man videos. So we stand October here at the Sea Tactics. But I think for those who don't know who she is, probably will end up falling in love with this yokai because she's just very fun. And who doesn't love Hanako-san? Also, a couple of comments I saw point out and agree with what I said. That you are not supposed to like these three. You are supposed to hate them. After all, they threatened to cut open a helpless girl alive and then crush Ren's head with their thighs. It's not fun stuff to think about in the slightest, but combined with that and the fact that these nobles think they're above having to use the bathroom, it's pretty clear that we are supposed to just think about them in the most negative way possible. So I ask you guys, how does this change how we see Jeremy and how we see the Kerr-baddie? Because to me, it makes Jeremy seem much more evil and ruthless, unforgivable really. But the Kerr-baddie, it makes her seem more misunderstood while also being preyed upon and manipulated. She doesn't, as of this moment, feel like an Aninra or a Jeremy in terms of her stance in the story. She feels much more like a combination of the dynamic that maybe Queen Sensei brings while also having a dum-da-dum dynamic along with her. We'll have to see how she acts in upcoming arcs and chapters, but right now she is literally the only person that I see in this group that feels like she could very, very, very easily be redeemed. And knowing her backstory, I feel like the Kerr-baddie is much more in line with the qualities we look for in the Dum-da-dums than the ones we observe in Jeremy's goons. But only time will have to tell in that regard for that assessment. But yeah. So about the Aninra though, Long Man brings up a very small detail. The Aninra seemingly only wanted to get the quest done. He did not partake in any of the attempted murders of Koki or Ren. He did approve of it, but he also didn't partake. And maybe Tatsu did this because he still plans to redeem the Aninra while also using the other two to trick us into thinking that he is just as irredeemable as those other goons. So really, we just got to make sure we evaluate the Aninra a little more carefully from here on out. I'm speaking for myself here, because that was very sly of Tatsu to do it that way, and he almost got me if it were not for my hero, Long Man. Now, we have some comments that pointed out something else I didn't quite get until I saw it, and I went, oh, that's right! Koki Yukishiro still has her Tontadas. This is because the Pygmies are separate from the Lord of Flies, which means we could see this fight enter into a second phase where Hanako-san and the Pygmies team up to stop Jeremy's goons from taking away those powers for good. After all, the Tontadas, which, by the way, I probably should explain the reason I call the Pygmies that, it's my little reference and tribute to One Piece's Tontadas and to Oda, of course. I very well could see the Tontadas create something to box in the three further so that Hanako-san can basically beat up or beat them within an inch of their life. As after all, Hanako-san is meant to kill, but it is good news that Koki still has her little buddies to help support her. As for Ren, though, but if there is one thing we've learned is that Ren is quite capable and a really underrated character at that. So we will need to see how far this goes and how it goes down, but I am very hyped. And it seems my community was as well. This one got a peak rating, which usually means something really good happened that week. And you know what? You love to see it. Check out the next Dandadan video here, my most recent Chainsaw Man chapter review here, or my recent video on the new episode of Frieren right here. Join the Discord as well. Make it a great day or not, the choice is yours.